Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the networking session we have every Monday. It's July 26, 2021. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just enter your questions into the chat box. For those people watching on Facebook right now, please just enter your questions into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed, and I'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is currently being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that comments in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org to help those who were unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area by trying to put everything you need to know about your job search in one place. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, after being invited to go to the White House and finding out that there really wasn't anything else like either of the websites out there. So that's when I started careerusa.org in 2012. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007, and I'll tell you about our upcoming programming at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIT crew, since 2017. And this is a great way to practice your interviewing skills. If you need any help, don't wait until you have an interview scheduled. Practice early, practice often, as they like to say. It's a great opportunity for you to just be ready to go, just to practice what you do. Well, when we started talking about networking, I went, well, who do I know who can talk about networking? And so here are 19 different people that have talked about networking. They have all presented in their own way what networking is to them, how you should apply it. Today we have our 19th speaker with us. So today Terry Goldfarb is with us. She's going to talk about networking strategies to manage your career. She's a network and relationship building coach. I want to thank somebody here in the DFW area who happened to go, I heard Terry speak. She was great. You got to go invite her. And so we connected last week and Terry offered to come present today. So Terry, let's see here. You'll need to unmute your mic.
There you go.
And thank you very much for being with us, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation, Jeff, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I loved your startup music. Last night, I went down a proverbial rabbit hole on YouTube and wound up listening to learn how to dance in a half an hour with 10 steps. And one of the dances was the jive. So I was in my den kind of learning to jive. And then you came on with this music. It took a lot of constraint to just sit here.
Well, it's one of those feel-good things. You know, you can't listen to that music and not feel good about what we're doing.
I know, I was bopping along.
Right.
So let me introduce myself. I started a program called Executives in Transition about 25 years ago. It started out innocently when our CEO kept coming down to my office with former clients saying, Bob is in transition. I thought you could spend some time and help him out. And the first few times I kind of went, what do you mean? What do you have in mind? And, oh, spend some time with them and give them some advice. Wasn't quite sure where he was coming from, but at the same time, the company I was with was growing beyond a hockey stick, and we were recruiting all over the world. And the recruiters would come down and say, I've got somebody in my office that's really awesome, not really a fit for us, but I thought maybe you could spend some time and help them out. Now, I was hired for business development and marketing. So, but I always enjoyed helping people that were in transition, just kind of one-on-one, just casually. So this is what happened. And this is how it started until it took on a life of its own. And I was meeting with people spending more time than on my day job. So we put it into a once-a-month class. We did that for 20 years. And when I retired, 5 years ago, I handed it off, but people still called me. They found me through LinkedIn or friends or whatever. And so I still was meeting with people even after I retired. And it, again, took on a life of its own. So the company I worked for has brought me back just to run the classes. I also coach people that are wanting to get on their first corporate board. So that's kind of the two dimensions of the area that I coach and speak to. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. And there we go. So I wanted to talk about my story, and basically every significant event and every person in my life is the result of a committee I was on, a neighbor, a colleague, a girlfriend, somebody I sat with, worked for. And I never really realized that until my boss had me start talking to his, clients. And when I would be talking to them, I would go, wow, I wonder, I started thinking, what do I do? How did I become good at this? I don't understand. And I had to really analyze what was going on. And the fact is I never ever had to look for a job in my life. I had been tapped on the shoulder, hired away, recruited over to every job I've ever had. And when I thought about how that happened, I thought, this is the story. So my first job ever was as a result of my father. And yes, family members are a great source. And probably most of you got your first jobs through an aunt, uncle, parent that hired you for something, possibly. But my dad worked for Disney and had the opportunity to sit on Walt Disney's lap and him say, when I was very young, when you grow up and graduate high school, you can come work at Disneyland. And I basically kept him to that. So the day I graduated high school, I showed up in the personnel casting office and got hired. And I was there for 5 years all through college as a tour guide. And it was a fun job, and nobody could have ever predicted the impact it would have on my life. But so many good things have come out of all the relationships, either people I had on tour or the people I worked with, to this very day. So after that job, I actually had just a couple of odd jobs until I got married, had my child, and then several years later got divorced and had to actually get serious about my career. And I was at a concert with some former Disneyland friends. One of them said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for a job." And she said, "Come work for me." And she was the sales manager for an office supply company for outside sales. Now, there was a bubble over my head when she said that said, "Ooh, sales, yuck. Ooh, office supplies, pens, papers, pads of paper, so forth." That did not sound exciting to me. And I didn't want to, jumping at that opportunity was not something that was top of mind, but it was like she could read the bubble over my head. And she said, "I know it doesn't sound very exciting, but you are a single mom and you need flexibility, and I'm your boss and I could give you that. And if you don't like it, then you can quit and it's no skin off my teeth. I totally understand, but give it a try. You'll have flexibility that you need as a single mom." It was the best thing I ever did. She taught me so much about sales and relationship building with clients. And I worked for her for 4 years. It was wonderful. That was because of someone I worked with. And then while I was there, I got involved with the capital campaign for a performing arts center that was going in here in Orange County. And that campaign I was on committees with up and coming high potential business people. And I also was involved on teams with some of the top CEOs in the county. At the same time, I was called by a girlfriend of mine that needed to retire from her job because she had unfortunately crippling arthritis. I did not understand her job. I did not understand what the company did, which was the case in every job practice I've ever had. And she was the business or membership director for a local lobbying organization. Well, I got that job because of the people I was involved with the capital campaign. They were on the board and they said, "Oh yeah, she's great, hire her." That job put me in touch with every CEO in Orange County for 3 years. created a fabulous network for me. And at some point I was in that job, and somebody that I was on a committee with for the Performing Arts Center called me and said, I'm moving to San Francisco. I would love to hand in your resume with my resignation. And I went, I don't understand what you do. And she says, it doesn't matter. I worked alongside of you on a committee for 3 years, and you've got the skills, and I'll be here for a month training you. And so I interviewed, I got the job, and that turned out to be a wonderful opportunity. And then a while later, I got a call from yet another person at another accounting firm, Coopers & Lybrand, same story. She got offered the job of her dreams. She wanted to hand in her resignation with my resume. Who does that happen to? And so I got that job. I was there for 8 years. Then I got a call from another friend who said, hey, the managing partner at Deloitte is starting up a venture inside of Deloitte that with the plan of growing it globally, spinning off, going public. He's looking for a business development person. I told him, you're the person to hire. And I got that job. I did not have a goal of being in any of those lines of work. Like I said, I didn't even understand them, but I learned so much, and I had such a phenomenal career. It was wonderful. And it was all because of people I sat on a committee with, lived next door to, worked with, and so forth. And my goal is to really share that story about how did that happen, and why did it happen to me, so that it can happen for you. Because the blessing of not having to worry about where your next job is coming from is amazing. And since I retired and started consulting on my own, I've been blessed with the same luck. The other organizations down there, ESPN, Cisco, UCI, and so forth, even my former employer, RGP, have all hired me, and I haven't had to do much of anything to make that happen. So what is the deal? How does that happen? And I'm going to skip this, and we'll come back to it because I want to get through a lot of material, but we're going to talk later about how networking has enriched your own life, because so many times people don't think about how it's enriched their life. You have to kind of do what I did and go back and think about the jobs or the opportunities you've had and what they've led to. And I'd love you to do that exercise, but we're going to move over to here. So want to know kind of, what are the fears that you have about this search or managing your career? Are these the ones that we have up here typical of what your anxieties are? If you want to take a second and read those and maybe put something in the chat, I would like to see if these are hitting the mark, or if there's some other things that you personally have had anxiety about. Excuse me a second. For some reason, I can't see the chat, Jeff.
Okay, well, Eric said he doesn't have a strategy.
Okay. Anyone else?
Steven says ageism. Jennifer says anxiety meeting new people and lack of strategy. Richard says age discrimination, interview done, glitch feedback, and Glee position relisted. Kevin says a long time goes by, many think I'm retired. Chandra says unprepared and anxiety. Todd says number 3.
Yes, okay, perfect. Excellent. Well, I'm going to address the ageism really fast. I'm 76. I have never been busier. There's so much to do out there, and the things I'm going to share with you will hopefully help you move forward faster and get show that you are involved and sharp and staying current. And those are things that are really, really important. And the more that you do that, the more you become that. And that's been my experience. I felt older when I retired 5 years ago than I do now, because I'm so busy and so relevant and having fun. So I'm hoping that the ageism will be dispelled when you execute on some of the strategy. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and address some of these. So Our goal is to discover why you should be networking, overcome the awkwardness when reaching out to old friends, colleagues out of the blue, big one. How to nurture your network and maintain these relationships by compartmentalizing and annualizing, probably two words you don't use every day, and developing an actual strategy. And we're going to unlock secrets. We're going to unlock the secrets to networking during and after a pandemic. And the number one secret is nostalgia. And that's because people have been isolated for a year and a half, and maybe coming up, who knows, maybe having that happen again. And they're feeling isolated and alone and scared and depressed. And to hear a voice out of the past from an old friend or an old colleague or an old neighbor is absolutely a godsend for most people. And it's not bothering them, and they're not wondering what you want. They're just absolutely thrilled to hear from somebody. So nostalgia is a big reason and a big secret to reaching out and networking right now. The secret to reconnecting with long lost contacts is to truly care. That is one of the most important traits of a good networker. The secret to networking your way around a down job market, and I don't think you are suffering from that where you are. We aren't here, but I know there's some markets that are. But the fact is everybody's in the same boat right now. Everybody understands what's happening to everybody else, and people actually want to help. So it's not a self-serving market. It's like people understand, and everybody's, kind of in this together and wants to help pull everybody up along the way. The secret to developing and executing strategy is research. We're going to talk about that. But if you do your research and you do your homework, which is part of the strategy, it will move you further along much faster. And then the secret to staying healthy during a pandemic is the reconnecting, because it reduces that isolation and it reduces the stress and it reduces the loneliness. And the asterisk takes you down to Simon Sinek. And if you haven't heard about him or heard his TED Talks, you must do that. He's the #1 TED Talk of all the TED Talks. And he talks about the release of happy hormones and healthy hormones when you are reaching out or doing acts of kindness. And so I really encourage you, if you haven't heard that talk or any of his talks, to do so, and they will substantiate, all of the things that I'm talking about right here. So the route we're going to take really quickly is we're going to talk for 1 minute about networking. We're going to talk about 3 premises that this is built on. I'm going to introduce you to the networking matrix. And then we're going to talk about, which is a very structured solution to this process. And then we're going to talk about the unstructured solution. And then we're talking about maintaining and nurturing your network. And then finally, strategy. If you have questions, please put it in the chat, and hopefully Jeff will flag me and we can stop. So networking. First of all, a lot of people recoil at the word networking. They get shivers, they get sweats, their palms get sweaty, and that is very prevalent. So I want you to, if that is you, to get rid of the word networking and replace it with the word reconnecting. Because the fact is, if you're reconnecting with people you already know and that already know and love you, you don't have to meet even one more new person. And I'm going to prove that to you, because you already know more people than you'll ever have time to reconnect with. So don't think of it as networking, think of it as reconnecting. And if people ask what you're doing these days, instead of saying I'm networking for a new job, just say I'm reconnecting with a lot of old friends and it's been great. I mean, the fact is, it's pretty funny. Everybody the last year and a half has cleaned out closets and garages. And in that process, we've all probably run across old pictures, old yearbooks, old articles about things that are friends or people we know. And you think about these people, and you probably get warm fuzzies about that, but do you do anything with that? The most fun thing I've been doing is taking a picture of whatever that item is and immediately sending it to that person. It wasn't something I deliberately planned to do. It just started happening and immediately reconnected. And I'm still going through boxes and doing that. And it's a fabulous activity. And I encourage you to look at each of these different categories and go through your stuff or go through the pictures even on your phone and just find one of old friends and send it to them and say, I was just thinking of you. And that's probably the best way in the world to stimulate your activity. But you do not need to meet even one more person. During this pandemic, people kept saying, well, I can't network because of the pandemic. Well, that's hogwash. I've been busier than ever, and I've been doing it on Zoom, email, texting, telephone. Can you imagine that? And there's no excuse. There's a million ways to connect with people and stay in touch with them and stay connected. So just know that there is no excuse. So why connect with old friends, neighbors, family, and colleagues? Well, you have a history with them, and that's really important in that connecting part. You have a bond with a lot of them. Maybe you were in their wedding, or maybe you went ziplining in Africa with them. I mean, there might be experiences, the shared experiences that created that bond. And it releases happy hormones. So I'll be talking about that a lot because I'm such a proponent of it during this, especially this crazy time right now. So that's the best reason in the world for reconnecting with these people. So right now, what I'd like you to do real quick is pull out a piece of paper and a pen, and we're going to do a quick brainstorm. It's going to take 5 minutes, and we will probably readdress it more later, but I just want to show you. I'd like you to write down the names of 2 or 3 of your best friends in high school or college. Just pull up their names and just write them down real quick. Now write down the name of whoever was your favorite neighbor, whether it was when you were young or junior high or college or now or any of the places you've lived in the last 20 years. Who was your favorite neighbor? Who was your favorite boss / employer? It could have been Mr. Jones at the corner drugstore when you were in high school, or it could be the person you worked for last. Who was the person that was a role model for you? And again, it could be a long time ago or it could be more recent. Somebody that you always looked up to, somebody that you maybe even modeled yourself after or studied. Maybe somebody that you really learned from. Who helped you the most over your career? Is it a professor, a family member, a friend? And who referred you to your jobs or who hired you for every job that you can remember that you've ever had? And you don't have to write those now, but you can write down 1 or 2 now, and then you can complete this list later. So right now you've probably come up with like 10 names or more. That's 10 people that you think really highly of, and how amazing it would be to reach out to them even from a million years ago and say, you know, I was thinking of some of the people that made a difference in my life, and I just wanted to let you know you're one of them, and say, you know, wanted to reconnect and say thank you, or just let you know what you meant to me. Do you know how far that will go? First of all, it'll make you feel fabulous. And when you do that, you'll be making them feel fabulous. And then when you see that it's making them feel fabulous, that'll make you feel fabulous again. It's kind of like a ping pong ball. And Simon Sinek talks exactly about this dynamic. And every time that happens, back and forth, again, those hormones get released. And it makes you happy and grateful. And it's a very wonderful feeling for everybody. So these are people that you definitely want to make and put as part of your strategy. And we'll talk about how to do that. So we're going to jump around a little bit, but now I want to talk about what are the most important skills for successful networking. Real quick, write down in the chat 1 or 2 skills you think are really important.
Bernie says interpersonal skills. Rita says positive mindset. Sue says listening. Chandra says relatable. Brian says being sincere. Jennifer, perpetual networking. Bonnie, enthusiasm for the person you're connecting with. Making connections with them, have a go, showing genuine interest in the other person. Good follow-up, from which I am terrible at. Is what Eric said.
Okay, so, and the answers are all right. And here's a couple maybe that didn't get hit, but, or they're variations of what we've already talked about, but being authentic is really important. Nobody likes somebody that's, is being kind of shrewd or, what's the word I want? Not real in their intent. You think that you're going to see someone that's anxious to see you, and it turns out they want to sell you something. So that's why being authentic is really, really important. Caring, that will take you so far. That's probably one of my strongest traits, because I totally care about what I call my peeps, which are just the people in my network. I don't let go of people easily. I stay in touch with them because I can't stand to let go of people. And then adding value. So whenever you can add value to anybody that you're talking to or that you're involved with, and I do it intuitively, but start making it part of your thinking even before you see people. So for instance, Jeff, he invited me to do this, and I'm thinking, well, this is so wonderful. What can I do for Jeff? Well, I'm going to try to see if there's people in his market that I can introduce him to that will maybe help send people to the program. And then being appreciative. I'm so appreciative of this opportunity, and being appreciative of whatever anybody does for you is a wonderful skill to have, because they feel like that, well, they didn't waste your time. Being curious, really asking people questions and trying to learn about them. That's part of the caring and the being authentic. And then being curious, the active listening comes in. And active listening means looking at them in the eyes, nodding, even a tilt of the head is an indication that you're looking, mimicking some of their gestures if they're using their hands, so that when you're responding back, you can do the same thing. That shows neuro-linguistic patterning, I think that's called. Being interested, that's different than being curious, like tell me more, being really fascinated by something that they're doing. And then being grateful. And that's just something that you have to have way down in your heart. So these are traits that will take you a long way in terms of the networking activities. And if you can put this up on your refrigerator door or next to your monitor, when you're talking to people, it just will remind you to activate some of those qualities, because it's so easy to get distracted and start thinking about something down here when someone's talking about something, or if you're at an event or a restaurant, to be looking around at what's happening and not really listening to the person that's talking to you. Or maybe you're just kind of talking about something and it's kind of very surface, but if you really think about what they're saying and intently come up with questions and learn more about it, they can teach you a lot. So these are all things that you kind of have to be reminded of, but they'll take you a long way. So there's 3 premises why you should be networking. Statistics will tell you why you need to be reconnecting, and we'll talk about that in a minute. People are far more likely to help people they know, but how do you think of everybody you know? And this is a secret, not so much, but it's something you have to consciously think about. Service providers and vendors and past coworkers are your best network. And why is that? Because they are active in the business community. The service providers and vendors and the people that you've paid or your company has paid money to for their services, they want to follow you wherever you go because they want to work with you again, if you've actually been the hiring person. I say take advantage of that. So they know what's happening inside of all of their clients, and they know what's happening inside of all of their prospects. They hear the water cooler chatter. They are involved, they're the confidants of their clients. and they're the advisors of their clients. So you should make sure that you reach out to these people that you know that are in those roles and stay connected to them. And we'll talk more about that. And that's something a lot of people don't think about. So the statistics that I referred to on premise number 1 was that 72 to 85% of all jobs are found through networking. I used to say that was part of at the executive level, but that happens even at the college level. It doesn't matter. So that's huge. So when people say they're reading online, trying to find jobs, that the very last line on this page says that's the apply and hope method, which I love that line. I wish I'd thought of it, but that's truly not the best use of your time. You still should do a little bit of it, but that's not the best way. It's the way you must spend the majority of your time. And then 75% of resumes are rejected before they ever reach a hiring manager. A lot of it's because of the applicant tracking system. So you need to figure out how do you get around that. 82% of the highest level jobs are never posted. Why is that? It's back because of those service providers. Those, the CEO is sitting with his attorney, his corporate attorney, and he's saying, I'm going to be making some changes. I need to hire some people in this area because we're starting up a new division. So if you know of anybody, let me know. He may have not even talked to HR about this yet. This is maybe over lunch or having a martini. So these service providers hear about these opportunities that are never even posted. And then they wind up referring people in that they know. And then 54% of employers have rejected candidates based on their social media profiles. I just like to throw that in because that's so important. And I know Facebook is so prevalent, and I always get worried about what people post there. But do know that those social media things are looked at by everybody, and be very careful. And then 5% of the jobs are found through job boards and networking events. That's a very small percentage. Again, we call that the apply and hope method. Because when you're networking there and you're meeting new people, those people are looking around to see who's the next person they're going to meet. They're not even listening to you. They have no vested interest in you unless you are working for a company they are trying to get into. It just isn't the best use of your time. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because you'll see people you do know there. And that's the people you want to connect with. But you don't need to meet one more new person unless somebody, maybe Jeff, grabs you and says, there is somebody over here you need to meet for a reason. So hopefully you'll take those statistics to heart and realize that it really paints a picture. And so if you read between the lines of these headlines, the job you want may never be advertised. You do not need to meet one more person. Spend 80% of your time on proactive strategies, identifying targets and reaching out to people you already know. And then the other percentage, looking at job postings, searching online, and attending networking. That's kind of a redundant of what was said the page before, but just kind of as a summary. So I talked about the very structured tool for networking, or reconnecting actually, and it's called the networking matrix. And it's going to help you laser focus on who you already know, the service providers, the vendors, the people that reported to you, the people you reported to, your colleagues, the people, other people in the organization that you worked alongside of, other company alumni, college alumni, religious and philanthropy activities, and so on. So we're going to hop right over to that. So this is, there's 3 pages of this, and you don't necessarily work inside of this. I tell people to get your resume out and put it alongside of it, and then have a letter tablet on the other side, and let this just be your map, kind of your GPS system. So on the tablet, you can put the name of the company you just left, ABC company. And then these are what I call buckets or categories. And you need to customize them for the type of people you interacted with in your job. So if you're a CFO, you probably interacted with a CPA firm, a bankers, attorneys, and so on and so forth. If you're a marketing person, you interacted with, other types of people. If you're a supply chain person, you have different names for these buckets. So you need to customize these for yourself. But everybody had people that you reported to, or direct reports, or peers in the organization. So you literally go across after you've kind of penciled in on top of this, the category names, and say, okay, who was well, you look at your resume, and the very first bullet under ABC company is that you did the due diligence for an acquisition. Well, you didn't do that by yourself. You probably interacted with an accountant, your outside accounting firm. Who was the name of the partner and the manager? Maybe a banker. Write those names down. And these names you write down on the tablet. Again, don't try to do it in here. Some people do, that's fine, but it's just easier. This is a brain dumping exercise. I want you just throwing names down as fast as you can. And you go across all the buckets, and then who were the people during that due diligence that you worked with inside of the company? Did you report to somebody with that due diligence? Were you part of a team? Or who reported to you? And then after that, well, you did the integration of that acquisition. You interacted with totally different people. Now you're interacting with maybe a different, even banker, or a different attorney, and you're probably interacting with commercial real estate people, either acquiring or letting go of properties and so forth. And so you can see how every single bullet will involve interacting with different people. So if you're taking the company public, even the accounting firm, they might have switched out the partner for you because the partner you've had as a private company doesn't have IPO experience. So you want one that does. So that's who you're going to be interacting with. And you do this all the way through your resume as far back as you can recall. And you think, oh, really? 20 years ago? And I go, yes, those can be absolute gems. So don't discount anybody. And this is a tedious process. I encourage you to go to a park, a library, lock yourself somewhere where you won't be interrupted, and spend like 3 hours. Just nail this. This will be a treasure chest for you of people that already know you and really care about you and would love to hear from you. So just write the names down. I want you to lock your phones somewhere up where you can't get to them, and just focus on name dumping. And then you can look up the information later, but I just want you to get as many names down on this tablet as you possibly can. And then you can look them up, either Facebook, LinkedIn, Google. You can find anybody these days. And if it's too hard to find them, then you don't need to find them. But so you can go all the way down through each company, DEF company, GHI company, and so forth. And you know, you heard about my story about Disneyland. That was 50 years ago. So it's like, it's amazing how excited people get to hear from you after a long time. And if you just are connecting for connecting's sake and without an agenda and being authentic because you care, miracles will happen. Whoops, I don't know what happened. There we go. And then you go, if you belong to any trade organizations, well, who did you interact with at these trade organizations? Were you on a board or a committee, or did you just hang out with people? That's fine. Grab the names. Philanthropic organizations. Were you on a board? Were you on committees? That first accounting firm at Laventhal and Horwath, I was on a triathlon committee. How did that qualify me to be a marketing person at an accounting firm? Really? Honest to God. So, and then your religious organizations, maybe you're on the building committee or the childcare committee or whatever at your religious organization, but those are strong relationships too. College alumni, you think, right. Well, I have to tell you, one of my best clients I got as a result of cold calling somebody that went to the University of Missouri, which is where I went for 2 years. And if you'd have told me that was going to work, I would have said that this is a long shot beyond belief. But when I was trying to prospect this company, I didn't know anybody there. And this was before LinkedIn. So I got in the habit of reading their websites, which is part of the strategy I'll talk to you about, and looking at the bios of the leadership team and the board. And the general counsel, the very last line on his profile said, University of Missouri. Okay, let's give it a try. And I called and I asked for him by name, and I said up front, he doesn't know me, he's probably never heard of the company, but tell him I'm a University of Missouri alum and I'd love to talk to him and introduce myself. He took the call, and when he answered the phone, he said, "Go Tigers." I mean, is that like, yes, take it home. It was so much fun. We talked about when we were there, we overlapped each other by a year. We had the same econ teacher. We hung out in the same pizza place. And we had so much fun talking about that. And it got to the point where he even started inviting me to the football game parties he had at his house. And then finally he said, "So what can I do for you?" And I said, "I'd love you to know who our company is and bring my team in to meet you. And then if you ever have a need for our services, you'll know who we are. I'm pretty soft sell." And he said, "Okay." And that was it. And he wound up becoming a client. And then I found out he's a neighbor. He actually lives less than 4 blocks from me. And that's why he started inviting me over to watch football when University of Missouri played. So don't think anything is too much of a long shot. It's just too much fun leveraging some of these stories and sharing them with you because they're real. I actually collect landing stories, and all of these stories that people have shared with me on how they've found jobs, I'm putting into a book and weaving it into a book about networking. And I have hundreds of my own, and then I've been collecting hundreds of other people. So if you have fun stories how you've landed, I'd love to hear them. Whoops, I keep doing that. Company, alum, church. Also sports. I mean, if you ski with a bunch of people, golf with a bunch of people, have a gardening club, a book club, whatever it is that you do for extra other activities, make sure you grab the names of the people you're involved with. Neighbors. More people know what their neighbors put on their roses to kill the aphids than what they do for a living. One of my biggest targets was a company I had no idea. I didn't know anybody there. And it turns out, if I had have asked a neighbor on either side, "Do you know anybody at this company?" My next door neighbor on the left would have said, "Down at the end of the block, Mark wears a t-shirt all the time that says that company name. And he's my son's soccer coach. So that's how I know that. He always has a t-shirt on with that company name on it." Duh. Well, if I'd have done that, I would have gotten work from him rather than hearing, "Wow, I wish I'd met you sooner. We could have really used your help." So get to know your neighbors. You all live probably in the same economic environment that you work in, which means your neighbors all work for companies or have worked for companies or know people that work for companies that are looking for you. Family. So a lot of us don't know what a lot of our aunts and uncles and cousins do. And I've been guilty of that myself. So I encourage you, get to know them. Who are they? Don't wait till they die and read their obituary and go, "I didn't know that about Uncle Tom or Cousin Sally." And that's happened to me. It's like, oh my God. So get to know your family, do a history or, get to know them. Tell them you want to interview them. What was your career path? How did you wind up doing that? Tell us fun stories. I mean, my grandmother rode a buckboard from Cripple Creek, Colorado to Denver on a monthly basis for groceries. I didn't know that till she was passed away. I would have loved to have heard those stories. So, so get to know your family a little bit better. I'm looking at the clock, speeding by. Okay, so reconnecting. How do you reconnect with these people? I've talked about going through pictures. With all these people, you can probably find either a press release of a company you worked on together, an article about something you did together, pictures in your boxes in the garage that you did together. And it's more fun to go through the boxes and then reach out as to try to find something. But if you Google things about these people, you can find things too. And if you can't, if you look at their LinkedIn and see what they're interested in or what they're doing, find a TED Talk you think they might be interested in and send it to them and say, I saw on your LinkedIn that you were, interested in that you scuba dive. And I saw this TED Talk about scuba diving or shark diving. I thought it might be of interest to you. Just find something. You've gone to the trouble, go to the trouble to find something you think they'd be interested in. And they'll be really surprised and thankful, and that'll be the beginning of a really fun conversation. Or if they're on that list way back at the beginning that we talked about, that were people that you have a real connection to, reach out to them and say, I just wanted to let you know that I've always admired you. I've always appreciated what you've done for me. You were my favorite neighbor. You were my favorite teacher. You were my favorite college friend, whatever it was. And I just wanted to not let another day go by without letting you know that you made a difference. They will be floored. And it will be so fulfilling for you. It's almost selfish because you just fill up and then they'll fill up. And it's just a wonderful exercise and you'll have reconnected. Whatever you do, do not ask for a job. This is not the time to do that. You want to reconnect, establish the relationship, move it along. And then, they're going to ask what you're doing at some point, but don't make that even slightly look like that's why you're reaching out. You have to do it from your heart. You have to care. You have to be interested. You have to be curious. You have to be authentic. And if you do that, it will pay dividends like you've never seen. So the unstructured solution is, the fact is, I'm just looking at the clock, you have to talk to everybody. One of my favorite stories took place in a knit shop. Alice was there. She knits. She had just relocated to Southern California. She was a trailing spouse. Her husband moved here to become the CEO of a company. She was a corporate attorney in where they came from. She wanted to maybe do some consulting, and she ran into Marilyn, who happened to be a friend of mine, who was a CFO of a big company, who also knitted. They were talking. Marilyn's very gregarious. She said, "Oh, I'll help you meet some people. I'll make some introductions for you, so that will help you." Well, I was one of the people she sent the letter, an email to. And at the very moment that I opened it up, a young man walked past my office that had just launched our legal services consulting practice. I had met him, but I didn't know him yet. And I waved him in. I said, "I don't know the profile of the people you're going to be hiring for our consultants, but I just got this resume. Is this somebody that would be a fit?" She became our first legal consultant. We kept her busy for 9 years as a consultant. We brought her inside when we needed help inside. And then she became our associate general counsel. And then our general counsel became our CEO. And now she's our general counsel. And that was because she was in a knit shop. Okay. So committees, I've already told you some of my committee stories. Fledglings. A fledgling are people that are younger than you. There was a CIO in town. He was probably one of the biggest CIOs in the nation. I don't mean size-wise, but he's got one of the biggest CIO jobs in the nation. He was in transition many years ago. He was adamant about doing that structured way of, identifying people. And he identified different teams he'd managed 20 years prior to being in transition. People that he'd mentored on the way up, hadn't seen them in years. So he decided to host some of them at a bar for pizza and beer. There were about 10 of them. And one of them said, "Oh, tomorrow I'm going up to LA and meeting with Bob." And my friend said, "Oh, tell him hi." Next day she's having lunch with Bob and she said, "Oh, I just saw Joe and he said to tell you hi." "What's Joe doing?" "He's looking for a job." "Really?" He went back to his office and looked his profile up on LinkedIn and went, "Wow. This guy has really come a long way since we last saw each other years and years and years ago." Reached out to him, had lunch, went back. 5 days later, offered him a job, one of the top CIO jobs on the planet. And he's been there for like 9 years. And that's because of reaching out to teams he had that when they were young, 20 years later, getting them together. So the more you bring other people together, you're the instigator, you are adding value immediately. You don't have to think, what can I do for Jeff? Because you're the one bringing people together. And that's huge value to everybody. You're helping them all reconnect, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, 20. Doesn't mean you have to buy. Everybody, buys their own, whatever. Go for walks with groups of people. I had cocktail hours on Zoom for a year with friends. I don't even drink, but I had a martini glass with, bubbly, and that nobody knew. And so there's a million things you can do with groups of people. But if you organize a group of people getting together that haven't seen each other for a long time, then you're really adding a lot of value. I know I have to speed along here. Anything I don't get to touch on, you have questions on, you have my permission to call me. So compartmentalizing and annualizing each category. So you've got all these categories. You've got your different work, company A, company B, company C. You've got the people you used to golf with, the old neighbors. Those are all categories. And if you pull neighbors together, colleagues together, college friends together, those are the compartments. And just do a wine tasting, a barbecue, golf, hiking. It doesn't matter what you do, what the group, but if you annualize it once a year. I mean, my Coopers and Librand team, I host a pizza party. I don't host it, I organize it. I have the same flyer. I just change the date. I copy, paste, send. Takes me 5 minutes. See you at BJ's Brew House on whatever date it is. Everybody pays their own way. Every year people connect on jobs, even when they weren't looking, because they all know the cloth they're cut from. They know what they're capable of. They know their spirit. But this is the way you stay in touch with people, the way you nurture your network, and it can be once a year. Or you send a blind blast of holiday cards. Anything you can do to touch people once a year. One guy is Irish and he sends limericks every St. Paddy's Day. It doesn't matter. Just touch people. And then, of course, there's emailing and LinkedIn posting to stay visible. If you comment on things people post, or post your own things. You can have virtual lunches, real lunches, holiday cards, coffees. But this one right here, the take advantage of lulls, is one of my favorites. What the heck is a lull? A lull is a moment in time where you're held hostage. You're waiting at the dentist and he's running 10 minutes late. You're at the car wash, 10 minutes. There's nothing else you can do. Scroll down on your phone, pick a letter, pick an S, look through your S's, find a name of somebody you haven't talked to in a while, and lob a text or an email and say, I was just thinking of you. How are you doing? You can lob 10 of those while you're waiting for your car wash or while you're waiting in the dentist's office. And if you did that every single day, 1 or 2 or 3 of those type of reach outs, 365 days a year, that 300 people you'd be reaching out to just by going through your phone and sending a text or an email saying, I was just thinking of you. How are you doing? And that is not a lie. You were thinking of them. All these names that you gather from those exercises, download them into whatever contact database you use. Strategy.
Gary, don't worry about trying to be done by, top of the hour. If we go 10 or 15 minutes over, that's fine. Great.
Thank you. All right, let me catch my breath. Good, because there's some strategy here. So, okay, so this is how you're going to identify people you haven't talked to or thought of in a long time already. We talked about that. We talked about how you can reach out to them, how they'll love hearing from you, and ways to reach out to them. Now, the actual strategy. How do you find companies that are maybe looking for you? So having a target list is really important. And we have the business journals out here. I don't know if they have them across the country. So do you have the business journals there?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so the book of lists,
Yes.
They have that as well. So if you read the business journal every week, it tells you on the first 4 or 5 pages the companies that are growing. It says, this company's looking to make an acquisition. This company just hired 20 people. This people needed more real estate space. This company's getting ready to go public. It tells you what companies are growing. What are growing companies doing? They're hiring somebody, and that somebody might be somebody like you. So you make a list of these companies every week. You go in and look at their website. You get a sense for their culture, whether it's a company you want to work for or an industry you're interested in. And then you look at their leadership team. You look at their board. Do something, go into LinkedIn with each of those names and see if there's anybody if maybe you know somebody on that leadership team or on that board. If not, there's always that line that says, you and Terry both know Joe. And so you can find people that knows that person. And then you go in and see if they've posted any jobs on their website. And if they're hiring anybody, you actually are probably more likely to find out about opportunities that aren't posted, but they very well may have things posted, which is fine. And it would be so much more helpful if Joe that knows somebody there would send your resume and say, hey, I saw that you're looking for an XYZ and a friend of mine is in it. I just thought I'd share their resume with you. That would be real eyeballs on your resume and not an applicant tracking system, which is what would happen if you applied online. So it's tedious, but if you look at the profile of everybody on the leadership team on LinkedIn, you're going to find out a lot, and you get a spreadsheet. You've got the company name, you list the officers, the board, and then who's connected to them, and then if you've reached out to them, and then you just start tracking it. You don't have to do 100 companies. Every week, take a couple of companies of ones that sound of interest to you, that sound promising, and do it with just a couple of companies a week. And you'll find out that will move you much faster through the process than just wildly stabbing. So by leveraging relationships you already have that know people at companies that are growing, you have a far better chance of finding something. So, if they're public, you can look up their, quarterly reports, you can look up press releases, all of these things. They tell you what they're doing. They tell you what their growth plans are. They tell you what their obstacles are. Maybe that you've been through that obstacle and you're a perfect person to help them overcome that, or you've helped a company grow the way they are planning on growing. You have information by doing this research that will give you absolute ammunition to get in front of people and tell them the value you would bring them. And it doesn't matter what your age is. If you can talk to them and show that you have value, then they're going to be interested. And with LinkedIn, you can find out who you know that knows them. I think Dallas and Fort Worth are probably very much like Southern California. You're 1 degree of separation from anybody you want to know in the business community. So take advantage of it. Then during the pandemic, and again, people go, oh, I can't job hunt during the pandemic and nothing's happening. This pandemic, this article was, I don't know, it was either in Forbes or one of the big magazines. There were 5 very clear business sectors that absolutely exploded during the pandemic: ed tech, health tech, e-commerce, remote work software, and home improvement. I bet you have some companies like that in your area. Those companies are still growing. So those are companies, here in Orange County, every one of these categories has companies here that have either pivoted from something else or started new that are just exploding, already gone public. It's crazy. And then you do the same thing. You find out who you know there, who's on their teams, and get in front of them. So then you have all this information I've thrown at you. How do you make sense of it? This is kind of a schedule. You can put whatever numbers and days on it that you want, but it just kind of synthesizes the things that I've talked about. If you did at least 10 lulls a day while you're having your coffee, having your car washed, or at a dentist appointment, or just sit and do it. That's your first thing you want to do every day. That's a lot of people in the course of a year. And it takes you about 10, 20 seconds a person. And then maybe daily you research a different contact or target and develop that information. Weekly, I encourage you to reach out to 2 to 4 people from each category on your matrix. 2 former companies, 2 people from some activities that you do, 2 people from your church or your old neighborhood. I encourage you weekly to either post or reply to something on LinkedIn. Again, just to get your name up there, just like people will remember you, because how many times have people called you and said, gosh, I'm looking for somebody for a job I'm hiring for, an HR professional, in case you know of anybody, and you go, I don't know about you, but my brain, my 76-year-old brain goes, oh geez, who do I know? I know somebody. It's hard to pull it up in a vacuum, but I've just seen someone's name from a LinkedIn posting. It's far more likely that I'll be able to pull that name up. Monthly, plan at least 5 small group gatherings, virtual or not. 2 or 3 people. It doesn't have to be a party. If you want to do 1 instead of 5, do a bigger one. Do 10 people meeting it, for a beer or going for a walk or something. but do something monthly with a group of people. And then Sundays, I love Sundays to actively practice gratitude. Send at least three thank you notes for anything to anybody that made you feel good. I actually keep a gratitude list because I can't get to these cards necessarily every time I think of them. So I keep a list of people that I want to send a card to. I'll tell you, you ever get sad or depressed or lonely or upset? You look at that gratitude list, the people you're grateful for. Oh my gosh, that will fill your heart, and it will keep you happier and more positive and more energized. So I really encourage you to do that. I keep it by my bed because those quiet moments right when I'm getting ready to go to bed is kind of when I think through my day and, count my blessings. And that's a lot of times when I think of somebody. Practical tips. Don't ask people for help. Ask people to coach you or advise you. So you see that Jeff knows somebody at ABC company that's growing, and they look like they might be going through something that you have experienced. And you can go to Jeff and say, can you coach me? How would you advise me to get in front of that company? Is there a way that you think would really be helpful? And Jeff would say, well, I know somebody there. And you don't necessarily know that, or you might already know that, but asking for coaching or advice is really softer and more, this is my picture. I'm asking for help and the person's eyeballs roll in the back of their head, right? Oh, here it comes. I say, coaching, can you coach me? I see Jeff walking down a path with his arm around my shoulder saying, yeah, let me tell you what to do, just kind of like the coach. So I just get a totally different picture. And these are all variety of tips, so they don't have a theme. Zoom. I know Jeff talks a lot about Zoom. Most important thing is make sure your lighting is good. I don't want to look at a dark face in a dark room. That doesn't make me happy. I want to see someone's face. I want to see them smile. I want to see stuff around them. So make sure your lighting is good. They have those halo lights. They're like 20, the 12-inch one is all the one you need. They're like $20 or $25. They're fabulous, and it just helps. And you can change the light on it, so it helps soften the look and makes you look warm. Make your background a little interesting. Either books that, be careful what books you have people see. Things are so divided these days. You're afraid to, but I have all these books behind me on networking, so people can ask me all they want about what are the books. Circle back to referral sources, anybody that's referred you to anything, anyone, anywhere, and let them know the results of their referral. And if you got an appointment or if you landed a job, or just, for the very fact that you got the referral, be sure every week you circle back with people that did something for you. Keep the family in the loop. When you're in transition, the whole family kind of gets tense. It's tough. But if they know what you're doing, it's so funny. You're going out golfing. Well, yeah, that really sounds like you're looking for a job. But you can say, hey, I'm golfing with 5 people or 4. Let's see how much I know about golfing. I'm golfing with 3 other people that work for a company that I used to work for, and we're going to connect on old times and help each other and show gratitude as much as you can. It will always pay off. Check your spam and junk folder. I know Jeff has that on all his emails, and I actually need to embrace that and do that too. I don't have it happen hardly ever, but the last thing you want to do is have somebody think you're blowing them off. And then just back to the showing gratitude, just thank people all the time. It just will let people know that you really are paying attention to what they're doing for you. Here's just some additional resources. I call them gifts you give yourself. They're books that I've always loved and found helpful. What Color Is Your Parachute is probably one of the older career job books, and it's still relevant. They update it all the time, and it's just a great book. Just about anything you can think of is in there. Keith Ferrazzi wrote 2 books, Never Eat Alone and Who's Got Your Back. He was a consultant at Deloitte and business development guy. And these books I'm so ticked off because it's like I read them and I hear myself because he talks about everything I've shared with you today in different ways, but I highly recommend them. He comes across very egotistical in them. You can actually hear it in the book, and he is like that, but great information. And then I actually met him about a year ago he spoke somewhere, and I was curious, and he talked about a book he's writing right now. And he threw out saying, if anybody's writing a book and needs advice, let me know. I swear to God, I'll talk to you about it. So I went up to him and said, I'm writing a book. He asked me a few questions, and he said, give me a call, we'll talk. And we did, we Zoomed, and he helped me. So he's gotten over that egotistical thing. The Go-Giver is a great book. I highly encourage it. It's a quick read. Art of Small Talk. It'll help you with things if you come up short. I would say keep a cheat sheet on the back of a blank business card of questions to ask people anywhere at those moments where you can't think of anything to talk about. Book How to Work a Room for people that just don't feel comfortable doing that. Again, hopefully you don't have to do that, but there's situations that come up. Never Apply for a Job Again. Daryl Gurney, he's a coach friend of mine. This is a great idea that he's come up with. That book is really a cool solution to getting in front of people by doing research on a company in an area and interviewing the decision makers in that company about something, whatever whatever it is you're going to interview them for, and getting in front of them and then getting back to them with the results of your research. It's a brilliant book and it works. Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, great networking book. And this one I just discovered, A Friend of a Friend of a Friend. And so those are books that will maybe energize you, give you ideas. Sometimes you need to hear the same thing 5 different ways, maybe 5 different words, the same thing, and then all of a sudden it clicks. So maybe something I said didn't resonate and somebody else says it some way, a different way, and it does. So I encourage you to do that. And I think there we go. So I don't know if we have any time at all, but it would be fun to hear any either landing stories that you might have or any questions that you have. I'll let Jeff blow the whistle when time's up. And if time's up now, then I apologize for taking so long.
Oh, Terry, great job. Karen has a really good question here. You stated not to ask for a job. So if you've just connected with a new LinkedIn contact who asks, how can I help you? What's the appropriate response?
Somebody's saying to you, how can I help you?
Yeah, so you've connected with somebody on LinkedIn and they go, so how can I help you?
Yeah, well, that's a little bit different story. I would say, my gosh, thank you so much for asking. That really means a lot to me. That wasn't my intent, and maybe connecting with you, but I am in transition, and this is always have a target list and always be specific. Do not say, I'm looking for a job to use my great skills to make the company grow and prosper. I'm looking for a small to medium tech firm between $200 and $400 million that's in a growth spurt that's specializing in med tech. Be specific, as specific as you can, such as, and then name 3 or 4 companies. Always be specific. Do not make them do your thinking for you. Give them something to work with.
And please don't, I see this on my Friday group when we were meeting in person, and people would tell me, well, I'm looking for a job in the North Dallas area. Well, that doesn't help anybody, okay? Be specific. List company names. Tell me exactly what you're looking for. I mean, company names are really the best because, who do I know in that company? And even if I go back to LinkedIn afterwards and look up, I'm, oh yeah, well, I know so-and-so at this company. I can pass that name along. But yeah, don't tell me North Dallas or the DFW area,
I don't have time to do your homework for you. I need you to tell me, what can I do in 5 minutes?
Right. So what would you like to do? If anybody would like to introduce themselves, is that what you're trying to, you want to do?
Or tell me a landing story if they have a fun networking story. I love fun networking stories.
Okay. If anybody's got a good networking story, please unmute your mic and we'll let you talk.
Get my paper out here. Okay.
Once. Going twice. Anybody? Fun networking story? Kevin, you're muted.
I was gonna say Kevin looked like he was getting
Yeah.
ready to a racing horse out of the chute.
Yeah, I was living in Los Angeles and I was out of work. And, I have an MBA from Cornell, an engineering degree, whatever. But I was out of work for a long time and I was running up a credit card debt. Don't do that anymore. Anyway, I really needed a job and they were having a NACCP, whatever it is, career event at the Century Plaza Hotel or something, big place. No, at the airport. So I said, well, I need a job. I'm going to go. So I went and there were just Black people there. And I was the only white person there. And I wonder if they're going to confront me and tell me I don't belong here or whatever, but I need a job, so I don't care. And I just got on one of the lines and people start talking to me. They never mentioned that I was white and they were Black. And actually, I went to one of the booths. I talked to a company and I got a consulting job out of it. And started out at 50 an hour and worked up to 75 an hour. I was making $150,000 a year.
That's a cool story.
Pardon me?
That's a cool story. Yeah, don't be intimidated by anything. And obviously you stood out, so they were very welcoming and probably awarded your bravery.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Richard, I see you've unmuted your mic.
Yeah, I was at the time I was working with EDS. This was a long time ago, and I had been trying to get an engineering position with EDS and checking with all the crews out there what engineering they had, this, that, and the other. And I was in the process of pulling a resume together, and I went to a Network Users International meeting, and I was talking to a guy that I'd taken several classes with. He says, "How did you always have all the work done before you got to class?" And I said, "Well, I build my own servers and I run these tests and I make sure I've got everything working before we ever get to class." As I was using the same thing I did was in college, which is for every hour in class, you're spending 2 or 3 hours doing prep work. Okay. And he looks at me, he says, "You build your own servers?" And I'm like, "Yes." He says, "Are you available?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's my resume. I'm going to be putting it out." And I didn't think anything about it. I said, "Okay, what is this random guy I ran into this meeting? What he's going to do?" Yeah, he was the tech support. He was the tech lead at Greyhound, and I got a call. Says, "Well, we're interviewing for these positions. Are you available?" I was at an airport getting ready to fly down to see my dad. I said, "Well, I'll be on the plane for X hours, and I'll give you a call when I get back." So I called him when I got back and left a message. And I didn't think that I literally had an interview on the phone. This was in 2000. Yeah, this was in 2000. The first time I ever had a phone interview. I was sitting in an airport talking to somebody on a phone, and he says, "Okay, when you get back Wednesday, come in and we'll fill out the paperwork." I'm like, "Oh boy, this is going to be fun."
That's
It,
great.
it turned out to be when I went from doing, basically help desk support to doing email messaging engineering, simply because I told a guy, I said, "Yeah, I build my own server," because they were in the process of having to build a pile of servers for their email system. And it was just like, "Yeah, here's my resume." At the time, it was like a 1-page. I've been at EDS for the past 2 years here. That I had just started doing engineering at that point. And I didn't think anything about it until I got the phone call at the airport.
That is very cool. I like that story. Thank you.
Very good.
I guess the one thing I'd say is you have to do some things you're uncomfortable doing to get to where you want to go sometimes. And so you feel uncomfortable for a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah,
You'll usually survive being uncomfortable.
better than going to the dentist.
Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah. All right. Well, Terry, thank you very much. I don't want to take up anybody else's any more time from anybody. Great information. I really appreciate your presentation today. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and your time and for listening to me. And Jeff, again, I really enjoyed this opportunity. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. All right. Starting in August, I haven't had a 3-day weekends in 16 months. So starting in August, we're going to move the networking sessions to the second and the fourth Thursday. So as you know, our Thursday sessions have all been about the resume. So we'll talk about resumes on the first and third Thursday and networking on the second and fourth Thursday. And I'll have a 3-day weekend, and I don't know, I'll go someplace. I'm not sure where, but I plan to go somewhere. So that'll be starting next week. So forget about what you see on the very first column there, because that'll be changing. But we are doing training. We'll be doing training 4 days a week. So every Tuesday we do LinkedIn Tuesdays. Tomorrow is LinkedIn search engine optimization, along with Ruth Lipsky. On Wednesday, for our interview Wednesday sessions, we'll be on session number 13, avoiding interview crashes. So Mark and Walt have done a lot of interviews, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews at the Pit Crew and through the Interview Success Workshop. And they're going to share some of the top things that they've seen that just messes people up, that'll mess you up during an interview. So just things to make sure you avoid. This Thursday, Carol Burkell will be back with us to talk about her favorite resume tips. And then this Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, Kurt Vondermatter, who's a retained search consultant, will be talking about the new normal of job search, the changes he's seen over the last 16 months since COVID started, on how, what's going on in the job search, how things have changed, and where he sees things heading right now. If you're not part of the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups, you're welcome to join either one or both. You don't have to live in the DFW area to join the DFW group. If you do, you'll join over 13,000 people who have joined the group. And a lot of those are recruiters. I tell you, probably 1 out of 5 people who joins the LinkedIn group, they're recruiters because they're trying to find you. So this session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. Please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, it looks something like this. Click on playlist and then pick the list you want. And you'll see down there's networking. Don't click on the video, but click down below where it says view full playlist. And then up will come a list of all the different events and all the different people who've spoken, the dates they've spoken, and the newest one should be on top. If not, click on that little sort button at the very top and it'll get the current ones to the very, very top for you. If you're not receiving emails about our workshop, if you're not getting them from another source, you're welcome to join the Career USA mailing list. Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io. You will get 6 or 7 emails a week. None of them will be spam, but what you will get every day is the tip of the career subject that we're talking about that day, the title of the talk, and the Zoom link. So you'll be able to join the, just click on open the video, click on the link. You'll be able to join us every day when we do our presentations. So please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. Terry was a volunteer today. I'm a volunteer. I've never gotten paid to do what I've done over the last 13 years. I'm just here to help you land your next great opportunity. Career DFW, we survive on donations. Please consider making one when you get your next job. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you later in the week. We'll see you all. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, may I ask you to please repeat the changes to this session?
Okay, just 1 second here. Let me stop the recording.